Hey there, I'm back again, and I'm going to review an old topic. I actually deleted my old video because I think I could just do a better job with this one, and then it will remain a benchmark for this topic of OXM mix-ups until I have a better understanding of it, which I'm bound to happen because I will be watching more League in the future. But to get started, I think it's a very common term in fighting games, and it is exactly where this originates from, at least in the gaming sense. Is what you do is you when you are in a game state that you're ahead in, or you're at least even neutral in and have some sort of leverage, then what you're doing is you're giving opponents multiple points of attack. And if they guess correctly, then they have minor to no losses. And if they guess wrong, the game explodes because they're completely defenseless for your own plan. So the reason why this is really relevant in season 13 is because after I've seen the patches and the first few games, I immediately noticed that Twisted Fate and Rise are going to be very strong. And when these champions are viable in solo queue, you know for a fact that they're going to be picked up in competitive for multiple of reasons. One is that the game still hasn't changed too much. If anything, the things that were strong in season 12 are even more strong now in terms of neutral objectives. As a result, even with the introduction of the new Drakes, I still think that Rift Herald is the most important objective in the earlier stages of the game. Mainly it being that turret plates are more expensive, and with certain mythic items being insanely strong, any influx of early gold is so important in terms of snowballing the game. So with that in mind, then Herald is safe to say, again, so OP. And in that case, then why not frame it in mix-ups when Rift Herald is most likely the occasion where we see mix-ups the most in the earlier stages of the game. Of course, there are minor intricacies and things like that, but it is a very common example to constantly track out throughout the games. So, the reason why Rift Herald is so important in terms of it to conceptualize in terms of mix-ups is because if you understand this concept and then use Rift Herald macro, then you give yourself more opportunities to explode the game even without dropping it in the first place. Of course, dropping it successfully is the end goal, but there is a way that you could actually even get advantages beforehand. So, let's see ourselves in like a common idea. The first important thing that we have to keep in mind is that it is really important in terms of mix-ups to have multiple chances to throw it. After all, there are more chances of there being an error if there are multiple attempts for you to throw that attack. So then I think I've explained a little bit too extensively in some ways on how to acquire Herald around the 8-minute mark to at the latest a 9-minute mark. So I won't be going to that in detail. Please refer to other videos if you have not. But with that out of the way, I think the common standard for Rift Herald setups, especially in the high level teams, is indeed going through mid instead of dropping it in the mid lane. Dropping it in the mid lane gives you certain advantages in terms of certain champions because it gives you a fast amount of gold, the guaranteed max of two, like guarantee of two plates. However, that's not necessarily the most impactful way to use it because it immediately gives you the influx of the gold and not necessarily the pressure that comes along with it. So let's think about certain things that are required for the drop sequence. First is complete river control. And what I mean by complete river control is as simple as just having two pings here. And being able to access throughout these paths without being revealed by wards that are either in the middle of the pit in these areas or even the shallow end areas around this area. So even if the enemy have wards here, it doesn't matter too much because by the time that they get seen in these areas, it's already too late. It's very difficult to react to a play, especially if the jungler is around mid lane and the enemy teams are already here. The play is most likely done by the time that they get there, is what I'm trying to say. So when you have these two pinks already set up, then you give yourself that opportunity to always be one step ahead. Then the optional one that is often really nice to have is enemy jungle pathing. So for example, if they're pathing down like this, and then the clears have just, and then after you have reset and then you're ready to throw the mix up, you know that the junglers camps are going to be spawning on this side. You don't even necessarily need to know that they're there. The information that you have at hand actually gives you a pretty good idea of what you want to do in terms of the game. So if then the concept is either sabotaging or advancing the game state. Sabotaging meaning that you are actively trying to ruin an enemy champion or an enemy game state, or you're trying to advance your own by giving influx of gold. You could probably guess where this is going to. Then if you understand the enemy's jungle pathing and you want to advance the game, and if you know that these clears are going to be on this side of the map, then going to the opposite side could actually accomplish two states at once. Because if the lane state is neutral at this case, and the enemy support realizes that they're going to have to back it up, then if you have a superior 3v3 because you have drafted properly around this area and you have like champions like Rise that could clear really effectively, or TF that have really good pick potential, then you're going to be able to shift down to this side, and the jungler has to make a really difficult decision. The camps have not spawned in this area just yet. These have just spawned. And if you are trying to prevent a 4-man dive onto the bot lane, or even a Rift Herald drop that could potentially lead to like 3-4 plates being taken down, then you have to back up your mid and then enter this area. And then your support has to choke at the same area and then meet somewhere around here, and then as 3, face check this area together in order to make sure that they're not being picked by 3 people. Then, during that entire encounter, then the jungler's camps are rotting. Or, you could even actively try to sabotage, where, if you understand that the jungler's camps are spawning on this side, and then you're very confident in your 3v3, and or that you know that the support is right here, then you could use these wards to attack into the side, threaten to drop Herald, force a top laner to be pinned under the tower, and then use these 4-man pressure to take some of these camps. Then the jungler is already in a sad state, and then the things are bound to repeat. Of course, the wave could be pushed back, and by the time that it limbos back, then they're going to be back to mid, and then making sure that this wave pushes into them, and then the same thing happens on the other side. Now, the counterplay that could potentially happen is when the mid laner and the jungler decides to pull together and play the cross map. And this is when these type of wards become very useful, because if they try to take an aggressive path and then try to expedite their arrival to the mid lane as fast as possible, or try to take this route and then try to wrap around the AD, then these wards will catch that movement. And then as a result, the AD could either back away and then completely be safe, or be wrapped around the side and then be taking wolves, or be taking over mid lane while these 3 players are just playing this area. It's a very powerful strategy. So, with all that in mind, then what is the end goal is the fact that is one of these side towers going down. And then even after the Herald has been taken down, then you can still throw the mix up at them. So there are multiple ways that you could do it. One that you can see a lot of the times in pro play is feinting, where after you have pushed the wave and it is turned for this side lane or this side lane to push the wave back to the neutral state, some of the players decide to stay camped on this bush or this bush, whichever one that is more relevant, and then try to kill this player. Vice versa, when they have double river control, and then you know for a fact that they have to recall at a certain state, but they're staying one additional state longer. And then when the support is trying to enter too early, try to clear this map because they're eager to do it, then they get caught in the mistake and they die, and then the nightmare begins yet once more. This is another way to throw a mix-up. And again, what this leads to is denial of vision control times that are naturally theirs, the blue teams right now. When they have reset, it is natural for them to be able to return to the map and then clear the wards before they come back in control. But what if they constantly have to deal with this mind game where there's always a chance that these guys are actually staying one additional 30 seconds longer and trying to exploit anybody that's trying to overextend and then try to get early pre-vision control? That could always happen. Last thing that could be really devastating is what happens when there's a long lane that forms. I'm going to use top lane because it is the most convenient case. And what ends up happening when there's a long lane is you kind of lose agency over this area of the map. So when this area is completely controlled by the enemy team, then you actually have very little idea on who's always on this side at all times. You definitely don't know where the jungler is, and you don't know where the support is unless they're actively showing the other side of the map. So in that case, then you always have to think twice about catching the top laner that is playing at this area. It enables them to play this area because, again, the enemy team has to guess. And if the players are here, and then the enemy top laner tries to contest this wave to create prevent a huge minus on the top side, then this guy gets killed. If he has to react responsibly, and there's actually nobody there, then what this enables them to do is it enables the top laner to leave around and then phase check this area rather safely, drop wards, or even pressure mid, while the other sides of the team are making advances on the other side of the map. The game of uncertainty is the one that is going to be really important in League of Legends as the game progresses. There's a lot of teams that are really good at these type of strategies. Mainly Damwon is the team that I'm looking for the most because Showmaker is an amazing Rise player and an amazing TF player. So I'm really looking forward to the start of LCK, and I think the way that these champions that are really strong even in solo queue are going to be utilized is the way that we're going to be able to see the major regions skills really fleshed out in terms of macro aptitude. Thanks for watching.